They thought I'd slink away quietly, head down, clutching a cardboard box of my belongings. They were dead wrong. I'm Clayton Rake, and for 13 years I turned the Eastern Division of Northrise Apparel from a sinking ship into a powerhouse, bringing in $4.2 million a year. Not with slick PowerPoints or corporate buzzwords. I did it with firm handshakes, looking clients in the eye, and keeping my word even when the sky was falling. I knew their kids' names, their business headaches, even which NFL team they rooted for. But on a Tuesday morning in Charlotte, the new CEO, Nathan Holt, with his tailored suit and icy smirk, tore it all down in 10 minutes. "Your position is being eliminated," he said, like I was just a line item on his spreadsheet. 13 years of sweat, 30 employees under my wing, dozens of relationships built from nothing. It meant squat to him. I didn't yell or slam the table. I just nodded and walked out. But inside, I knew this wasn't over. Nathan thought he'd won, that I'd vanish like the others. He didn't realize the relationships I'd built weren't stored in company emails or contracts. They were rooted in trust, and that trust was about to make him pay. This is the story of how I made a smug CEO see the error of his ways, when it was far too late to fix it. I walked into the boardroom on the 15th floor of Northrise Apparel's glass tower, overlooking Charlotte's bustling uptown district. Morning sunlight streamed through the windows, glinting off the polished wood table. I'd been in this room hundreds of times, pitching strategies, hashing out contracts, or just sharing coffee with my team. But today, something felt off. Nathan Holt, the new CEO, sat at the head of the table, laptop open, hands clasped like he was about to deliver a TED Talk. His bespoke suit hugged his frame, and his buzz cut was trimmed to perfection, fresh from the barber. 8 weeks ago, he'd come from Kestrel Group, the parent company that swallowed us up. 8 weeks, and he hadn't asked me a single question about how the Eastern Division pulled off 18% year-over-year growth, while other divisions flatlined. He never wondered why Laura, from Suncoast Financial, or Mark from Vector Properties, insisted on having me on their quarterly calls. I figured he just needed time to get it. Turns out, I was wrong. Megan from HR sat beside Nathan, clutching a stack of papers. She'd been here for 15 years, longer than me. Normally she'd flash a warm smile or ask about my weekend fishing trip. Today, she kept her head down, eyes glued to the table. I knew something was up, but I took my seat, setting my old wristwatch, a gift from my dad, on the table like always. That watch, with its scratched crystal and worn leather strap, had been with me through 13 years at Northrise. It reminded me that time and patience always win out. "Clayton," Nathan began, his voice flat like he was reading a script, "we're restructuring to maximize shareholder value. The Eastern Division has performed well, but we need a new direction. Your position is being eliminated, effective immediately." I sat in my small home office, the desk lamp casting a soft glow on the old wristwatch my dad left me. Its second hand ticked steadily, patiently, as if reminding me that time always sides with those who know how to wait. On the desk, the cardboard box from Northrise Apparel sat quietly, holding fragments of 13 years, a photo of Sarah and me at Lake Norman, the fishing trophy from the Vector Properties team, and a handwritten note from Laura at Suncoast Financial. Yesterday, I'd walked out of Northrise's glass tower, but what I'd built, trust, relationships, integrity, was still standing, and I wasn't about to let Nathan Holt erase it. That morning, Sarah brought in coffee, setting it gently on the desk. "What are you thinking?" she asked, squeezing my shoulder. I looked out the window, where the Catawba River flowed silently through Charlotte. "They don't know what they've done," I said. It wasn't anger. What surprised me was the clarity. For the first time in 13 years, I saw things without the haze of contracts, or the weight of 30 employees. But that clarity came with a question: what do I do next? I opened my personal laptop, not the company one. In a folder labeled Contacts, I kept my own list. Names, phone numbers, personal emails of people I'd worked with over 13 years. Not Northrise's database, but relationships I'd built by showing up when it mattered. Laura, who tapped her pen when making tough calls. Mark, who'd ramble about the Carolina Panthers on business trips. James from Eastern Bank, who'd call me late at night to sort out delivery snafus. These weren't just clients. They were proof of 13 years of sweat and heart. My mind drifted back to the early days at Northrise, when the company was still operating out of a dusty warehouse on Charlotte's outskirts. The Eastern Division was a mess when they brought me in, with 9 employees and an ultimatum: fix it or shut it down. Negative revenue, clients griping about late shipments, and shoddy quality. I didn't have an MBA from Harvard like Nathan, just lessons from my dad's hardware store in Gastonia, where I learned numbers don't lie, even when people do. For the first 3 years, I drove hundreds of miles myself, meeting every prospect within a 100-mile radius of Charlotte. I listened to their pain points, late deliveries, inconsistent sizing, lousy customer service. I fixed it all. We switched suppliers, tightened quality control, built processes so no one got left hanging. My team grew, from 9 to 15, then 25. I promoted Claire from customer service to account manager when I saw her handle a tough client without flinching. I hired Ryan, a kid fresh out of design school, after he showed me mock-ups that solved problems we hadn't even spotted. Our office moved from that cramped warehouse to a sleek space in Uptown, with windows overlooking the Catawba River. Every step forward was a brick I laid, not for Northrise, but for the people who trusted me. Sarah stood by me through it all. Late nights, weekend emergencies, last-minute flights to save an account. We're building something that lasts, I'd tell her. She believed me. Ethan, our son, was 12 when I started at Northrise. Now he's 25, an architect in Raleigh, calling home weekly to talk about his latest projects. 13 years. 3 CEOs came and went, but the Eastern Division led the pack in growth and retention. Last year's merger with Kestrel Group changed things. Nathan Holt showed up with his efficiency expert and spreadsheets thicker than a phone book. They talked about client acquisition costs, never about the trust that kept clients loyal. I picked up my phone, checked my personal email. No messages from Northrise, not a word from Nathan or Megan. But I didn't need them to reach out. I opened an old document where I'd tracked major contracts, values, renewal dates, growth opportunities. I'd sent Nathan this report 2 weeks ago, per his request. What I didn't include were the things you can't quantify, like how I attended the funeral of Suncoast's procurement director's father, or the night I checked Vector Properties' first big order at 2 a.m. to make sure it was perfect. Those don't fit on spreadsheets, but they're why clients stayed. My phone buzzed. A text from Ryan, my design lead. Nathan called an emergency meeting, asking for client contact info for your accounts. No one's giving him straight answers. What's going on? I set the phone down, not replying yet. Instead, I grabbed a notepad and started jotting down names, last contact dates, details only I knew. This wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was me protecting what I'd built. I stood and stepped onto the porch. The Catawba River shimmered under the sunset, and I slipped the old watch onto my wrist. Nathan thought he'd wiped me out, but he didn't know the relationships I'd built were stronger than any contract. And I'd use them, not to destroy, but to rebuild, my way. My phone buzzed at 9:30 a.m., just a day after I walked out of Northrise Apparel's glass tower. I was at the kitchen table, the coffee Sarah brewed still steaming in its mug. The screen lit up with Laura's name from Suncoast Financial. I took a deep breath before answering. Clayton, her voice came through, sharp and urgent. We just got a mass email about organizational changes at Northrise. Tell me you're not affected. I glanced out the window, where the Catawba River flowed quietly through Charlotte, its surface catching the morning light. I was let go yesterday, I said, keeping my voice steady. Silence stretched on the line. I could hear the faint tap of Laura's pen against her desk, a nervous habit she had when wrestling with big decisions. Who's taking over the accounts? She asked finally. They didn't say. Probably someone from Nathan's team. Another pause, heavier this time. Our contract renews in 6 weeks, she said, her tone deliberate. I need to be straight with you, Clayton. The board only approved staying with Northrise last time because of you. Their pricing was higher than competitors, but you always delivered. You fixed issues before they even hit our radar. I didn't respond right away, letting her words settle. I need to talk to my team, Laura said. Can I call you back on this number? Of course, I replied, and the call ended. I set the phone down, my eyes drifting to the old wristwatch on my wrist. Its second hand ticked forward, patient and relentless, a reminder of the 13 years I'd poured into building the Eastern Division. Laura's call wasn't a one-off. By noon, Mark from Vector Properties was on the line. Clayton, what the hell's going on? I heard you're out at Northrise. I gave him the short version. No embellishments. Mark let out a long sigh. They don't get what they've lost. We need to talk about our contract. Soon. James from Eastern Bank called next. His voice clipped with frustration. Clayton, no one's reached out from Northrise. Who's handling our account now? Emily from Bright Healthcare Systems followed, her tone a mix of disbelief and concern. Each conversation played out the same shock at my departure, worry about what came next, and questions about my plans. I answered honestly. Yes, I was fired. No, I didn't know the transition plan. Yes, I was weighing my options. I didn't badmouth Northrise or Nathan Holt. I didn't need to. The truth carried enough weight on its own. Around 2 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Ryan, my design lead. Nathan's losing it. He called an emergency meeting, grilling everyone for your client contact info. No one's giving him straight answers. They're scared of losing big accounts. I smiled faintly, not out of spite, but because I knew my team's loyalty wasn't tied to a paycheck or a corner office. Claire, my account manager, texted soon after. Nathan hauled me into his office, wants me to take over Suncoast. I told him I needed time to think. You okay? I shot back a quick reply. I'm fine. Do what's right. I didn't tell them what to do. They already knew where their loyalty lay. By evening I had 5 missed calls from Nathan Holt. I let them roll to voicemail, untouched. Instead I opened my laptop and started a new spreadsheet, not for contracts or clients like the ones I'd built over 13 years, but for possibilities. I listed companies that had tried to recruit me over the years. Summit Ridge Outfitters, a scrappy but growing competitor, based just outside Charlotte. A startup in Raleigh, with big ambitions but untested leadership. Even the idea of striking out on my own with a consulting firm. For 13 years I'd built bridges for Northrise, brick by brick. Now I had to decide, burn them down or build new ones for myself. I chose the latter. The next morning, my phone rang again, cutting through the quiet of the house. It was Greg Larson, CEO of Summit Ridge Outfitter. Clayton, I heard about Northrise, he said, his voice warm but direct. Their loss is our gain. My offer's still on the table. Senior VP, equity stake and full control over your client relationships. You call the shots. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the fishing trophy from Vector Properties on my desk. I need a few days to think it over, I said. Greg chuckled. Take your time. But I know you're worth more than Northrise ever gave you credit for. That call felt like a fresh breeze, after days of stale air. But I wasn't ready to commit. Not yet. I needed to see how the pieces would fall. By the third day, Nathan's calls became relentless, lighting up my phone every few hours. I let them pile up in voicemail. One message, left late the previous night, had a strained edge to it. Clayton, we need to talk. There's an issue with several key accounts. Call me. I didn't bite. Instead, I drove to a coffee shop in Uptown, a small place near Tryon Street, with exposed brick walls and the hum of morning commuters. Tom Bennett, Northrise's former CFO, was waiting at a corner table, stirring his coffee with a grim look. Nathan's in full panic mode, he said, cutting straight to it. Suncoast and Vector sent formal letters yesterday. They're not renewing their contracts. Reason: loss of key relationship personnel. That's code for you. The board's livid, breathing down his neck. I nodded, a strange mix of validation and concern for my old team settling in my chest. Anything else? I asked. Tom's frown deepened. Nathan's telling the board, you're sabotaging the company. Says you're calling clients, telling them to bail. He's pushing to claw back your severance, maybe even sue. I set my coffee down, the ceramic clinking against the table. I've only answered their calls, I said. I haven't told anyone to do anything. Tom nodded, his eyes steady. I know. But Nathan's spinning a story to save his own neck. He's desperate. I drove home along Providence Road, the Catawba River glinting in the distance. My phone buzzed again. Nathan, of course. I let it go to voicemail. When I played it back later, his tone had shifted entirely, almost pleading. Clayton, there's been a misunderstanding. The board values everything you've done here. We're prepared to offer a senior VP role, better package than before. Call me back. Let's talk. I deleted the message without a second thought, not out of anger. I just knew he wasn't offering me a job. He was trying to save his own. And I wasn't his lifeline. That night, an email from Claire landed in my inbox. The subject line was simple. You need to see this. Attached was an internal presentation from 2 weeks before my termination, marked confidential. Claire must have risked her neck to get it. I opened the file, and my jaw tightened as I scrolled through Nathan's restructuring plan. Slide after slide laid it out. Eliminate my position, performance be damned. Replace veteran staff with cheaper recent grads. Hike contract prices by 15%, once renewals were locked in. A note on slide 12 jumped out. Relationship-dependent business model. Poses significant risk. Must transition to system-dependent model to maximize margins. They hadn't fired me because I was failing. They'd fired me because I was succeeding in a way that didn't fit their cold, calculated vision. Worse, a later slide listed team reduction targets. Ryan's name was there. Claire's, 3 others from my division. all marked for the chopping block once I was out of the picture. I printed the document and spread it across the kitchen table. Sarah read over my shoulder, her breath catching. "They were going to dismantle everything you built," she said quietly, "and pin the fallout on me," I added, my voice low. I picked up the fishing trophy from Vector Properties, its weight solid in my hand. For 13 years, I'd built trust with clients and my team, handshake by handshake, late night by late night. Nathan thought he could replace that with a few interns and a spreadsheet. He was dead wrong, and the truth was starting to speak louder than his excuses. The calls from clients didn't stop. The next day, I got a message from a smaller account, Piedmont Logistics, run by a guy named Carl, who'd been with us for 8 years. His company wasn't a heavyweight like Suncoast, but Carl was the kind of client who valued loyalty over flash. "Clayton," he said over the phone, "I don't know who's running things at Northrise now, but they haven't called us. If you're out, we're out. Just tell me where you land." I thanked him but kept it neutral. "I'm still figuring things out, Carl. I'll let you know." Legally, I had to be careful. My non-compete clause barred me from soliciting clients for 6 months. But I didn't need to solicit. The relationships I'd built were walking out the door on their own. Ryan texted again that afternoon, his message blunt. "Half the team's ready to quit. Nathan's offering bonuses to keep us. But it's not about the money. What should we do?" I didn't tell them to jump ship. Instead, I wrote back, "Follow your gut. You know what matters." By the end of the week, Claire had turned down Nathan's offer to take over Suncoast. Ryan told me he was drafting his resignation letter. 2 other team members, both with me for over a decade, were quietly updating their LinkedIn profiles. The Eastern Division was unraveling, and Nathan had no one to blame but himself. On the 4th day, Nathan showed up in my voicemail again, his voice tighter than ever. "Clayton, we're losing Suncoast. They're saying they only worked with us because of you. Let's discuss a consulting arrangement. Help us transition. Name your price." I listened to the message on the porch, the Catawba River shimmering under the evening sky. A consulting gig would have been easy money, a cushion while I figured out my next move. But something about Nathan's sudden groveling felt off, like a trap dressed up as an olive branch. I didn't call back. Instead, I dialed Stephen Brooks, a lawyer friend who'd helped me navigate contracts before. "Steve," I said, "can you take a look at my Northrise agreement? I need to know what I'm dealing with." He agreed to review it by the next day. The following morning, I met Greg Larson for lunch at a diner off I-77, a no-frills spot with checkered tablecloths, and the best barbecue in Charlotte. Greg leaned back in the booth, sipping sweet tea. "Summit Ridge isn't Northrise," he said. "We're smaller, hungrier, but we know the value of relationships. You bring your clients, your team, we'll give you the keys to the kingdom." He slid a napkin across the table with numbers scribbled on it. Salary, equity percentage, bonus structure. It was generous, but more than that, it was honest. "I'm close," I told him. "Just need a little more time." Greg nodded. "Don't wait too long. Opportunities like this don't sit still." That afternoon, Stephen called with his take on my contract. "Good news," he said. "Your non-compete only blocks you from joining a competitor for 6 months, and Summit Ridge isn't on their restricted list. As for solicitation, you're clean. You haven't reached out to clients. They're coming to you." Nathan's got no case. I thanked him, a weight lifting off my shoulders. Nathan's threats were just noise, a desperate attempt to scare me into submission. Later that day, another email from Northrise's legal department hit my inbox, accusing me of violating non-solicitation agreements and hinting at litigation if I didn't cease interfering with company relationships. I forwarded it to Stephen without a word. He called back within the hour, laughing. "This is a paper tiger, Clayton. They're bluffing. You never signed a non-solicitation clause, and they know it. If they push this, we could counter for wrongful termination. Firing a senior leader with no transition plan. Courts eat that up." I leaned back, staring at the fishing trophy on my desk. Nathan was swinging, but he was punching it. By the end of the week, the dominoes were falling faster. Laura called again, her voice resolute. "We're not renewing with Northrise," she said. "The board's unanimous. We're shopping for a new partner, and we'd like to know where you're headed." I kept my response careful. "I'm exploring options, Laura. I'll keep you posted." Mark from Vector Properties echoed her, his email short but firm. "Give us a heads up when you land. We're ready to follow." Even Carl from Piedmont Logistics sent a text, No Northrise without you, Clayton. Name the place. I didn't solicit a single one of them. They were choosing trust over spreadsheets, just as I'd always done. Nathan's final voicemail came that Friday. His voice a mix of desperation and bravado. Clayton, the board's authorized me to offer you a senior VP role and a board seat. Let's put this behind us. Call me. I stood on the porch, the Catawba River glowing under the setting sun, and deleted the message. The fishing trophy sat on my desk, the handwritten note from Laura tucked beside it. My old wristwatch ticked softly on my wrist. For 13 years, I'd built something real at Northrise, not just contracts, but connections. Nathan thought he could erase that with a few emails and a restructuring plan. But the truth was louder than his promises, and it was speaking now, clear as day. A week after Claire sent me the leaked internal document, I made my decision. I called Greg Larson, CEO of Summit Ridge Outfitters, on a Monday morning. Greg, I said, standing on the porch overlooking the shimmering Catawba River, I'm in on your offer. But there's one condition. I want to bring my core team, 5 people. Greg didn't hesitate. Done, he replied. When can you start? 2 weeks, I said, and I'll need formal offer letters for all of us today. By noon, Summit Ridge had emailed the offers, me as Senior Vice President, Ryan as Head of Design, Claire as Director of Client Relations, and the other 3 from my team in key roles. I called each one, Ryan, Claire, and the rest, and laid it all out, my firing, Nathan's restructuring plan, and how their names were on the chopping block. I told them about Summit Ridge's offer. All 5 said yes on the spot, no second thoughts. That night, I slept better than I had since the day I was fired. My dad's old wristwatch sat on the bedside table, its second hand ticking steadily. 13 years of building trust at Northrise, and now I was taking it to a place that valued the real thing. I didn't call Nathan back, didn't respond to his legal emails or increasingly desperate voicemails. Instead, I set up meetings with my biggest clients, not to poach, but to check in, like a friend. I met Laura from Suncoast Financial at a lunch spot near her office in downtown Charlotte. She got straight to the point before we even ordered. We're not renewing with Northrise, she said, tapping her pen on the table. The question is where we go next. I gave a small smile. Laura, I can't solicit business right now. Legally, I've got to be careful. She grinned, her eyes sharp. I get it, but hypothetically, if you were at a place offering similar services, we'd be very interested in following. I nodded, making no promises, but I knew she'd already made up her mind. The other meetings went the same way. Mark from Vector Properties bought me coffee at a small shop by the Catawba River. No one from Northrise has called us, he said, his voice edged with frustration. If you're at Summit Ridge, we want to sign with you. Just say the word. James from Eastern Bank sent a curt email. Let us know when you're settled. We're ready. Emily from Bright Healthcare Systems called directly, her tone resolute. Clayton, we trust you, not Northrise. Even Carl from Piedmont Logistics, a smaller but loyal account, texted, just tell me where, and we're there. I didn't reach out to a single one of them. I listened, answered honestly, and let them decide. That's how trust works. Meanwhile, my team started moving. Claire submitted her resignation on Tuesday, citing differences in vision. Ryan followed on Wednesday with a brief email to the company, thanking his years there, but not mentioning Nathan. The other 3 from my team were gone by the end of the week. I heard from Tom Bennett that Northrise's office was in chaos. Nathan held emergency meetings, trying to reassign accounts, but no one knew the clients like my team did. No one knew Laura liked deliveries 3 days early, or that Mark needed custom reports each quarter. Those small details, built over 13 years, were what kept contracts tight, and Nathan didn't have them. The following Monday, Nathan showed up at my house unannounced. I was in the garage, tinkering with my old Chevy pickup, when his Mercedes rolled into the driveway. Clayton, we need to talk, he said, anxiety plain on his face. This has gone too far. The board's breathing down my neck. Key team members quitting, clients threatening to leave. I wiped my hands on a rag and closed the truck's hood. Sounds rough, I said evenly. Unfortunately, I've accepted another position. His face flushed. You're joining a competitor. That violates your non-compete. I looked him dead in the eye. Summit Ridge isn't on the restricted list in my contract. Stephen Brooks confirmed yesterday. Nathan took half a step back. You're talking to lawyers now. Clayton, be reasonable. Whatever they're offering, we'll beat it. I walked past him toward the house. It's not about the money, Nathan. It never was. He called after me. The board won't let this go. We'll sue you, Summit Ridge. Everyone. I turned back, just once. You can try. But before you do, ask yourself, what's more expensive for shareholders? letting me walk away, quietly, or a public legal fight, explaining why your biggest clients and top talent bailed all at once. He had no answer. 2 weeks later, I started at Summit Ridge Outfitter. Their office was smaller than Northrise's, tucked in Charlotte's suburb, but the energy was electric. Greg Larson kept his word, giving me full control over client relationships. Ryan, Claire, and the rest of my team settled in fast, bringing the experience and spirit from our days at the Eastern Division. We were starting fresh, but not from zero. The trust I'd built over 13 years was still there. And it was following me. Just 2 weeks after my non-compete clause expired, 4 of my 5 major clients from Northrise signed new contracts with Summit Ridge, specifically requesting me as their account manager. Laura from Suncoast called to confirm, her voice brimming with satisfaction. We know we're making the right call. Mark from Vector Properties emailed, "Welcome back, Clayton. It's like we never skipped a beat." James and Emily followed suit, and even Carl from Piedmont Logistics inked a small but steady deal. I didn't have to call anyone else from Northrise. I didn't have to trash the company. The truth did the work for me. 6 months later, I was reviewing quarterly numbers in my new office at Summit Ridge when Greg knocked on the door. "You might want to see this," he said, handing me a tablet. It was a financial article from the Charlotte Business Journal. The headline read, "Northrise Apparel, CEO steps down amid financial shortfall." The piece detailed how Northrise missed quarterly projections by 18%. The Eastern Division, my old territory, had lost nearly 40% of its business. The board had accepted Nathan Holt's resignation, effective immediately. I handed the tablet back to Greg, without a word. "You don't seem surprised," he noted. I shrugged. It's hard to build relationships on spreadsheets. A few weeks later, bigger news broke. Summit Ridge Outfitters announced it had acquired Northrise Apparel's Eastern Division in a strategic asset purchase. Greg had negotiated quietly, paying pennies on the dollar for what was once Northrise's crown jewel. The board had no choice. Sell to us or watch it collapse entirely. I didn't have to strike back directly. The market did it for me. We rehired some of the staff Northrise had let go during Nathan's brief reign. The Eastern Division, now under Summit Ridge's logo, quickly regained its footing. We recovered 3 more client relationships that had frayed after my departure. Revenue outstripped anything it had achieved under Northrise. One afternoon, I stood in my new office, looking out at a small slice of Charlotte. The fishing trophy from Vector Properties sat on a shelf, next to Laura's handwritten thank you note. My old wristwatch ticked softly on my wrist. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need validation. I just needed to rebuild, and this time, I knew it would last. A year after I walked away from Northrise Apparel, I drove past the old Eastern Division office in Charlotte. The Northrise sign was gone, replaced by Summit Ridge Outfitters logo gleaming under the sunlight. The building looked the same, but everything inside had changed. We'd rehired some of the staff Northrise cut loose during Nathan Holt's brief reign. We'd restored 3 client relationships that frayed after I left. The Eastern Division, now under Summit Ridge's banner, was generating revenue that blew past anything it had achieved at Northrise. I parked across the street, watching employees head out at the end of the day. Familiar faces mixed with new ones. They looked happy, engaged, purposeful. I gave a small smile, feeling like a chapter had finally closed. When I got home, Sarah was in the kitchen, prepping dinner. "I drove by the old office today," I said, hanging my jacket on the rack. She studied me, searching my expression. "Nostalgia or closure?" "Closure," I replied, and she nodded. "That's why I'm making your favorite tonight." We sat down to eat, and Ethan called from Raleigh, sharing news about a big project his architecture firm had landed. "How's the new job, Dad?" he asked. I glanced at the fishing trophy from Vector Properties on the living room shelf, next to Laura's handwritten thank you note. "Good," I said, "building something that'll last." Those words, I'd used them for 13 years at Northrise, but now they carried a new weight. This time I knew they were true. After dinner, I got a text from Tom Bennett, Northrise's former CFO. Northrise's remaining divisions just got snapped up by Gravera Group. Nothing left of the original company. I set the phone down and stepped onto the porch. The spring air was warm, thick with possibility. I thought about Nathan Holt, wondering briefly what he was up to. I hoped he'd learned something, though I doubted it. I thought about the 13 years I'd spent building bridges for a company that didn't value them. The late nights, the missed family dinners, the postponed vacations. The sacrifices were real, but so were the relationships I'd forged. In the end, those relationships followed me, not because I asked, but because we'd built something authentic together. No spreadsheet could capture that value. No restructuring could erase it. The next morning, I arrived at Summit Ridge early. I reviewed our quarterly projections, now 30% above target. Client retention was at 97%, the highest in company history. Greg stopped by my office, leaning against the doorframe. The board greenlit your proposal, he said. Employee ownership program kicks off next quarter. Ryan and Claire will lead the implementation team. I nodded. They'll do it right. Greg grinned. When this started, I thought we were just getting a sharp executive and some juicy contracts. I didn't realize we were getting a whole new way of doing business. I shrugged. Relationships over transactions, always. After Greg left, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the fishing trophy from Vector Properties. I set it on the shelf, next to new photos of the Summit Ridge team. Ryan pitching designs, Claire meeting clients, the whole crew celebrating our first big contract. My dad's old wristwatch ticked softly on my wrist, its scratched crystal catching the light. For 13 years at Northrise, I'd built something valuable, only to watch it get torn down by someone who didn't understand the worth of trust. But at Summit Ridge, I was building again, and this time, I had a team, clients, and a company behind me. I thought about what Sarah had said, back when I sat quietly, after getting fired. They don't know what they've done. She was right, but not entirely. They didn't understand the value of what I'd built, but I did. And I'd carried it with me, not through contracts or spreadsheets, but through handshakes, kept promises, and trust that never faded. By the Catawba River, under Charlotte's sunset, I realized justice doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes, it's just rebuilding, better, stronger, and letting the truth speak for itself. Thank you all for watching my story. If it resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell so you don't miss what's next. Let's keep exploring these journeys of justice, where trust always comes out on top.